12 years on from signing the greatest player the A-League has ever seen in Alessandro Del Piero, Sydney FC today reckon they've nabbed the best marquee since in the form of Brazilian superstar Douglas Costa. Whilst the A-League has been moving away from these kinds of signings, Costa's name will undoubtedly bring attention. But as recent failings have shown, he has to back it up on the pitch. There were a pair of Australia Cup all-timers on Sunday afternoon as the Bulls raged home against the Jets, whilst despite the weather reports, it was the strike off the boot of Marko Jankovic that delivered the largest thunderbolt at Lakeside Stadium, scoring perhaps the best cup goal ever to take South Melbourne into the quarterfinals. There's a host of other transfer news, including a former national team captain's return to the league, whilst Graham Arnold ponders his current generation for selection in the Socceroos' upcoming World Cup qualifiers on this episode of the Round Ball Australia podcast, supported by Deploy Football. My name is Lachlan Avil, and joining me today is Will Booth, fresh off his grand final victory on the weekend. Congratulations, mate.
Thank you. Pulled up all right, feeling better now though, and keen to kick on for tonight.
Yeah, some celebrations, I'm sure. Christian Montegan as well, hello to you.
Good evening, good to be here.
I'm sure you'll be happy as well. I've nicked out a good Italian pronunciation within the first 5 seconds of the podcast as well. It's got to be a new record, right?
I'm going to put it down to just a fluke. I want to see some consistency from you lot.
Okay. Got to keep it going week in, week out. Well, of course, Sydney FC have announced the signing of Douglas Costa. It'll be a 2-year deal. The 33-year-old has won a trio of league titles with Bayern Munich and Juventus, respectively. He's won the FIFA Club World Cup, played for Brazil in Russia in 2018 at the World Cup. Well, he's a winger of flair and trickery, that kind of stereotypical Brazilian outlook, really. Undoubtedly world-class in his day. He's amassed close to $140 million Australian in transfer fees over the course of his career, most recently playing for LA Galaxy and Fluminense. A massive signing, not just for Sydney FC, but for the league as well. And worth noting as well that the APL or Football Australia, as they used to when they operated the league, have made no contribution to this signing as they have done with some marquee deals in the past. So big signing for Sydney FC here.
Absolutely, yeah. When you look at it in the way that, you know, we need to attract the crowds back and and get that hype back up around the league, this is an excellent signing, right? Like it's some, you know, if you're interested in football, it is a household name, and you know, 5-star skills back in the day on FIFA. I think that's kind of the marketing gimmick they're going for, and yeah. So in that way, this signing, you know, makes perfect sense. It's a huge opportunity for Sydney at the moment. You know, other clubs are seemingly financially constrained at the moment. So this is a big opportunity for Sydney to kind of take a gamble like this. Not many other clubs would be in the same position where they would be able to kind of even go for a play like this, even in the last couple of years when the money was a bit healthier. So a good time to gamble for Sydney, where, you know, a bit of risk with the money. You know, we haven't heard the terms behind the deal exactly, but it's obviously, you know, a fair bit above maybe what the others would be on. But yeah, like a bit of risk for them now can see them, you know, put such a gap between them and the other teams who can't spend and bring in the marquees like this. So yeah, it's Sydney, as we'll get to, have that and as you mentioned, Locke, in the intro, have had a good record with their marquee signings. It remains to be seen if Douglas Costa can have that same impact.
So, yeah, the term marquee is an interesting one in Australian football because, like, that specific word has been printed all over this deal. But in terms of a technical sense, what it means for A-League clubs is that a player is paid outside of the salary cap and is paid more than $600,000 Australian per year. So you're right, Will, we don't know the exact terms of the deal. The marquee word seems to imply he's being paid a lot of money, which I'm sure he is, but whether it's specifically and exactly outside that cap, we don't quite know. But Christian, when we look at the recent history of marquee signings in the A-League, the two that spring to mind as big recent failures are Lewis Nani and Daniel Sturridge as well. Nani, for victory, didn't really have the fitness level to be able to compete. Got 1 assist in his first game, a big blue, but that was his only goal involvement in 10 games before his knee injury that ruled him out for the entire season. And then Daniel Sturridge, who from the outside looking in didn't seem to be even interested in playing, to be honest. I think he made one start, a handful of appearances off the bench. It really just goes to show that, just whatever name you come into the league with, it really is about what you do on the pitch that determines how fans will remember you.
Yeah, definitely. I think the one, I guess, worry for fans and neutrals alike in the league is, yes, this is a big name signing. We haven't had a marquee signing like this since, you could probably go back to, honestly, Del Piero. I mean, such a high caliber, top European tier, caliber type of player. I mean, you talk about those types of players. Really, we've only had the likes of Del Piero, when Shinji Ono, Emil Heskey, that sort of era we're talking about. So to poach someone like that is absolutely huge. But at the same time, you look at his record at the LA Galaxy and Fluminense back in Brazil, and it's not that convincing as you'd hope. But I've seen a lot of comments on social media saying that he's just here for a good holiday. Sydney's paid for his trip already for 2 years. We just got to wait and see whether he's able to produce on the field. Because as much as I'm an advocate for developing young players, and clubs shouldn't shy away from that at all, at the end of the day, it has its ceiling where people arguing, oh, Del Piero was here for 2 years and look where the league is now. I mean, well, yeah, because the FA and now the APL didn't continue to sign those top European caliber players consistently, after the Del Piero era ended. So, of course, the interest is going to drop down significantly. And I mean, Australian football isn't at a stage yet where we can sign a top marquee for a couple of years and then expect people who didn't originally follow the league to be consistent in terms of signing up for memberships and watching games on a regular basis. So that's all going to take time, and that's why I like these kind of signings, because it sort of taps into the Euro snobs a bit as well. I had a friend to me mention, he's a big Chelsea fan, but he's not really interested in the A-League because of the quality of it. But he said, okay, I might watch a few games now because Douglas Costa's in the league now, that's obviously what we want. And that's not to say, we're going to be signing, all these marquee players and, completely ditch the youth system, because we're still going in that direction and that's the right path to take. But at the same time, if you tap into a bit of everything, and suit everyone's demands and interests, then I think that's only a positive thing for the game to grow here.
It's interesting you bring that up, because the A-League has definitely gone down this kind of new way of thinking when it comes to visa players, kind of finding those players under the peak age of that kind of late 20s bracket. So you're looking at the 23s to 26s, somewhere in there, perhaps out of a good European academy, hasn't worked out for whatever reason the last few years, still has something to prove, still has that drive will. But for a certain level or a certain reputation of player like Douglas Costa, I think we can agree that it's okay to throw out those rules a little bit. And Costa will attract crowds, just like Christian's saying. He's got a worldwide appeal. The APL couldn't stop saying that he has 13 million followers on all his social media and all that kind of stuff. So, the A-League needs that as well in its current state. But he's also only 3 years removed from playing for Bayern Munich. That's not a whole lot of time. And Christian, I know you mentioned the point about his run at LA Galaxy and Fluminense as well. But hopefully he can back it up. And I mean, that's what we keep saying, but he really has to back it up, Will.
Yeah, he doesn't need to do all that much to kind of be a value signing for Sydney, right? Like, he is going to achieve a lot of what they wanted out of this signing before the season even starts, right? You can put up the highlights of him on the Twitter and link the membership, sign up link to get a membership in there as well. And we saw on the comments of that signing post, inundated with Brazilians commenting, and they might have keep an eye on the league now as well. So in terms of his playing, yeah, as you said, 3 years removed from Bayern, but he doesn't need to chip in all that much. I'm not expecting Tolga Arslan output from him. If he scores a couple of goals after a few stepovers and has a couple of moments like that, that's kind of all they need. I don't know if this is the competitive edge signing, but it's definitely something to be excited with nonetheless. But yeah, as you said, there other clubs have gone into their visa signings looking for players that are below that peak age and will have resale value after. So you just have to look at it as two different approaches to kind of a visa spot. So clubs have done it well. Mariners with Tulio trying to get a fee, or not always getting the fee, but at least attempting a player that will have that resale value. So yeah, it's just two different kind of signings. There's no wrong way to do it. You're just looking for two different outcomes from it.
And Christian, probably the biggest complaint with some of these failed visa signings is that they probably sit too far in the middle between competitive potential resale young kind of international player and someone who's going to get people to the games, watch on TV, and be part of the marketing budget in that respect. If they sit in the middle, well, then they're not really doing both either that well. But the only one that we've really seen do that is Del Piero, where Douglas Costa, might not have the competitive edge. He might lean towards that side of the marketing, thing, getting people into games. But if he does well enough, is he forgiven a little bit for maybe not giving the same quality of performances that Del Piero might have?
Not necessarily, because I mean he's 5 years younger than what Del Piero was. I mean Del Piero joined at 38 years of age. He was there at Sydney for 2 seasons. He produced. Off the top of my head, I think he scored 20 plus goals for the club. At that age, he was so influential. I mean, like you said, Lockie, he's just recently come off 3 years ago. He was playing at Bayern Munich, so the quality is expected from him. We're not, going to settle for these cameo appearances. Lackluster performances. I mean, Sydney are a massive club in Australia, if not the biggest. So they're going to demand, their star player to produce week in, week out. It's not, they don't want it to be a holiday. Yes, it's going to be great for the marketing side of it. And we'll touch on it that they've already got that patted down, which is great for them from that perspective. But I mean, yeah, Costa's a player as well. It's important to highlight that he's never really been a goal scorer. I mean, Bayern Munich, he scored 8 goals in 50 appearances. For Juve, in a couple, I think over 70 appearances, he scored about 6 goals. So, in terms of that aspect, the productivity in front of goal, it's not, you shouldn't expect, a 20 plus goal or 15 plus goal, season attacking play, because I just don't think that's going to happen overnight. But at the same time, what you lose in that department, you gain with his skill, his flair, his pace. If he's still got it, you'd hope so at 33. Obviously he's not going to be that same type of caliber player as he was in Europe, because he's gone to the LA Galaxy, he's gone to Fluminense for a reason, right? But no, at the same time, I think it's a great move for all parties, to be honest. And Costa's come here hopefully to, I guess, reignite his career in some sense, and yeah, hopefully we can see the best of him again.
Will Del Piero's crown as the best marquee in the A-League, I think, is pretty uncontested. As we said, he managed to be not only the big name signing, but really back it up as well on the field. Sydney FC reckon, or at least Ufuk Talay said in his interview, this is the best, signing since Del Piero. Do you reckon that's a fair statement? We've got the likes of Robbie Fowler, of course, played for the North Queensland Fury when they were in the league. Dwight York, right back at the start of the competition. You got cameos from Romero and David Villa as well. Those kinds of names. Where do you think Costa sits before he plays a game of football?
Yeah, asking a lot of me for sure. I mean, if you think about it in terms of who was closest to the peak of their powers, he's in the top. It should be in the top. 5 maybe. I think that's. In terms of longevity, after he had his moment in Europe, he's, as we've said, not far removed from it. So I think he's closer to that than, Fowler was when he came over. But yeah, it's tough to say. I think the upside is huge, and I said before, but I don't think he needs to do too much to be the best combination and be in the nowhere near the top, but in that Del Piero conversation, I think he can get there pretty easily. The door's open. We've had too many stinkers over the years. I think that he doesn't have to impress that much to be in the top, 5, maybe 6 signings.
I think that's where I'm at as well, Christian. It's awesome that he's coming to the league, and the name is brilliant. But I feel like I've just been burnt by too many in the past, particularly Nani at Melbourne Victory, to just let go too much and dream too big just yet.
Yeah, I think this is a different level, though. I mean, even if he does end up sort of flopping, then I don't blame Sydney for taking a gamble on him, because you don't miss out on these opportunities to sign someone like Douglas Costa. If it fails, it fails. Like we've mentioned before, the marketing side of it, that's a big plus for them. On the field, that's a different story. We're going to have to wait until, a few games into the season, after his tenure, if the signing was really worth it, and we can, draw comparisons to Del Piero and to the top foreign signings and imports that we've seen in the A-League. But look, I'm excited, to have a big name like Douglas Costa. I mean, surely it can only be a good thing. And like I said, we're not shying away from developing young players. We're loving clubs, taking that initiative. But at the same time, you have someone like Costa who can provide that experience to the younger players in the squad. I mean, surely that's a valuable asset. And I'll say one last thing as well. Sydney are actually a side now who can compete for the championship. Costa's not coming into a second last or bottom of the table team. He's there to compete in finals and hopefully win some silverware, because Sydney right now, I think they're at a position, especially with this addition, that they can definitely compete with anyone.
Yeah, and of course that's something Del Piero never did, is have team success with an A-League team either. One of my favourite parts about this whole transfer is the fact that Costa's first competitive fixture will be in the Asian Champions League 2, when Sydney FC play host to Hong Kong side Eastern. He's probably not going to be fit straight away, so you're probably putting him off the bench for the first few games. Can you imagine if they come all the way over to Sydney and they're having a good game, they're resilient in the defence, it's 0-0 in about the 70th minute, then you look over and see Douglas Costa warming up to come off the bench? That would be a frightening sign for sure. But hopefully he sets the league alight. Hopefully he inspires plenty of kids to try and work on their rainbow flicks at training. But if they get too good at them, of course, you're bound to lose plenty of balls on the roof and over the fence. So if you run out, Will, you know where people should go?
I think Deploy. I think they provide balls.
They provide some very good footballs. You're spot on. Yes, Deploy Football, proudly Australian owned and operated since 2012. One of only 2 Australian brands to ever receive a FIFA Quality Pro license. They have the largest range of program-specific footballs in Australia and offer clubs no lock-in contract teamwear, featuring custom sublimated kits in a 15-day turnaround. Christian, they offer the clubs access to the best value for money on football, teamwear and equipment, and we're very proud to have them as supporters of our show.
Definitely, 100%. Go invest in them.
All right, let's head to the Australia Cup, and it's feeling like 2022 all over again as Macarthur defeat the Jets to become the last remaining A-League team on the left side of the draw, according to Christian at least. In their Australia Cup winning year, of course, they only had to beat one A-League side on their road to the final. They have the same run in this time around. Of course, that year the final was also against a member federation team, but they might not be so lucky this year. Will, this was an incredible game to watch. The Jets got away really early. Sometimes those kind of games in pre-season can peter out, but the Bulls came back hard. Valère Germain with 2 goals and a few feisty confrontations. It's pretty much bang on what we saw from him all last season. Then Marin Jakalic comes in with a great banger. It was just an outstanding game of football, and the Bulls march on.
Yeah, as you said, just like one of those preseason games that Jets, they did start on top, and it maybe looked like, oh, here we go, going to be a big score here, and maybe, it'll slow down. Partnerships are being formed and everything like that. It will be a routine kind of see out the victory. But, man, it is a preseason game in another sense where, new connections between players everywhere, new partnerships that kind of nobody looked confident with the ball at the back, and a few mistakes didn't help, a few worldies. It was a crazy game. Don't know what German was doing for that penalty early on. He kind of went high and Sushna went low, and it's just the most obvious pen I've seen for a while, I think, there. So wasn't a good start from him, but no, definitely some takeaways from this game. I think Lockie Rose had a great game, and awesome to see him come back and work hard in defense for that goal he created as well. And I think a few of the Jets players have big seasons ahead. I think we're starting to see some fundamentals be laid out, and definitely some exciting players. I think Natta's goal was really nice, and I've always rated him as kind of one of the best centre backs in the league with the ball at his feet. And I just hope he has a platform to shine, because I think he's somebody who could make a step up and take on a new environment if if the team can be formed around him, and partnerships, and he knows who he's next to every week. Because I feel like that's been lacking in the past couple of seasons for the Jets. Is a solid backline and just a solid idea of who the partnerships are. So if he has a platform for that, and Jets can kind of steady stuff at the back, then I think I tip him for a big season. And a bunch of players. Clayton Taylor again, impressive. So exciting stuff from the Jets for sure.
Yeah, and of course they played Natta out of the 6 as well, which is a slightly unusual position. We haven't really seen him in that midfield role, so very interesting player to follow this season. I agree with you. I thought Clayton Taylor was impressive, but the real learning, I think, for me, Christian, is Luke Bratton for the Bulls is a really massive signing for them. I think he's this kind of field general that sits at the base of midfield and just dictates play. He gets on the ball a lot. He drops back between the centre backs, even out to the wide areas and defence, and gets his foot on the ball and just tells everyone where they're going and moves the ball forward. I think I don't want to go as far to say that Sydney FC were wrong for letting him go, because obviously they're trying to regenerate their team with youth players, and there's nothing wrong with that. But letting him slip to a rival like MacArthur, who don't forget had a very good season last year, I think that's dangerous, because I think having such a good leader, he was wearing the captain's armband in this game, in that position at the 6, can be really influential for a club like the Bulls.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect example of, someone's trash is someone else's treasure. Because like you said, Sydney are sort of offloading the type of player Braddon is to sort of rejuvenise that squad, into a championship winning one. Even though Braddon does have the experience, I think that definitely helps this MacArthur side, who've obviously now lost Clayton Lewis, in there. So I think he's definitely one Braddon to do a bit of everything, but more on the defensive side, where he can break up the play a lot. We know he's really aggressive, both on and off the ball. Can break up tackles, interceptions. He can do the whole lot, basically. And that's where he's a really great fit for this MacArthur side, who, when they're facing those transition moments where he can, shore up the defense and, I guess keep it steady at the back. So I think that's one positive aspect for MacArthur, definitely seeing in this match. But in terms of the game itself, it's just a bit of a game of two halves, where the Jets are really in control in that first 45. MacArthur started to get back into it slightly, but then that second half, it just completely turned on its head. And, that third goal for the Jets, I mean, that was a classic example of, don't play out from the back, because the ball was, right in the corner. And I think I forgot the players for MacArthur, but they were trying to play it out in that corner. I respect them doing that, but at the same time, that's just one way you just clear the ball out, and start again. That's where the Jets capitalize. But yeah, just some freakish goals in this game. Yakalosh was, insane. 2 worldies basically in the space of less than 5 minutes. I mean, basically unheard of, really. But at the same time, it's a cup game before the season. There's going to be tired legs towards the end, and I think MacArthur just exploited that a bit. I thought the Jets sort of ran out of legs, and I thought in the end a deserved victory for the Bulls.
Yeah, to double down on the metaphor of trash and treasure as well, Marin Jakalic, who you mentioned, Melbourne City to MacArthur Bulls. I know they're losing Davila, who's absent for obvious reasons, but watch out for the Bulls. I don't know, I just have a feeling about them this year. Could be interesting. But let's head down to Lakeside Stadium, South Melbourne, with a famous victory in the other fixture on Sunday afternoon. The drama in this game was just completely ridiculous. Everything you want to see out of the cup competition. Down 2-1 to Olympic FC as late as the 85th minute, after a lightning delay, mind you. They had to go off the field for a little while. Harry Sawyer misses the penalty. Ross Archibald scores in the 90th minute to send it to extras. And then the winning goal, Will, it's just, you struggle for even words to describe it. Right in front of the Olympic bench, a free kick, dead ball. You're just not supposed to score from there. You just don't do that. And yes, the goalkeeper is off his line, but you still have to hit the ball with such accuracy and such pace as well. Because as soon as you hit it, the goalkeeper knows what you're trying to do. So you have to get there quick enough before he can recover back to his line. And he hits it with such great technique, and it floats into the back of the net and scores one of the all-time Australia Cup goals.
I mean, that's a tough save if the keeper's on his line. I mean, yeah, as he said, he's hit that perfectly, and it does look silly where the keeper is, but that free kick's, nearing halfway, right? Like that's, you just don't expect that. And the weather obviously played a big part in this game. I don't know exactly. It's hard to tell what the wind was doing because that can always catch you off guard and just take it an extra half a meter over your head as a keeper. You think you're set up in the right spot, but just so easy to get caught out like that. And I think, maybe the keeper went up a bit early for it. He could have maybe taken a step or two more. But I don't think anybody did anything wrong there. I think he's just had a go when not many players would have attempted that. So no, fantastic to see and a deserved winner, I guess. They definitely had their chances early on in the game, and we'll get to it at some point. But I'm suffering in the predictions game right now. Harry Sawyer just missing chance after chance killed me a little bit there. But yeah, that late winner, the late equaliser to take it late with take it deep as well was a lovely move, and like probably the right result in the end was a draw after 90. I mean, both teams had their chances, and it was just South who took their one lucky free kick, and what a way to win it in the end.
All right, let's take on the rest of this side of the bracket. So Macarthur and South Melbourne both advance into different quarterfinals. The Bulls will play the winner of Oakley and Heidelberg, and then South will take on the winners of Hume City and Melbourne Serbia. So for Victorian teams, Melbourne Serbia, of course, playing in VPL2 at the moment. That's the third tier, which is a remarkable story. So Christian, this is the side that we've been talking about. Macarthur, the only A-League side left out of the 6. They do have the, in air quotes, easier run to the final, but we've talked about the chances of these member-fed teams, and I know you and I both believe that there's a good chance that one of those gets to the final, but it really is open on this side of the draw, and two big all Victorian clashes to come in midweek.
Yeah, it is. I think the key ones, Hume City and Melbourne Serbia. I think whoever survives that, they could, potentially have a bit of a crack to, make a really deep run, whether the semis or perhaps even further. But that left side is, I guess all to play for. Only Macarthur on that side of the draw. But if I had to tip someone, I'd probably go for South Melbourne, just based off the form. They're riding this wave of momentum where everything seems to be going right, both, at NPL level and at the Australia Cup. They were, minutes away from bowing out last night and somehow find a way to pull through. And they've just got this winner's mentality at the moment where it's very difficult to see them, getting knocked off their perch, unless something drastic happens. So now they're playing good football. They've got a good shout for it, but, you can't dismiss the other side of the draw where, I think Melbourne Victory also have a good chance of, making a deep run, considering they've got, I think, Adelaide on that side as well, a few state league sides in there as well. So, it's probably been, more open than, compared to, I guess, previous seasons where, it's been dominated a lot by the A-League sides. But it's great to see that bit of diversity in the draw.
Yeah, just before we move on from this side as well, Oakley, Heidelberg, Hume, and Serbia all had big weekends as well. Oakley and Hume winning elimination finals in NPL Victoria. Melbourne Serbia secured promotion into VPL 1. And then Heidelberg were knocked out by Hume in the elimination finals as well. So their regular seasons are still going. So fixture congestion is an issue as well, which they'll have to contend with. Then heading over to the other side, Christian, you alluded to it. We got 4 A-League teams against 4 member-fed teams, Will. So Victory take on NWS Spirit, Perth Glory against Moreton City, Adelaide against Olympic Kingsway, and then the Wanderers against Queensland Lions. Do any of those fixtures jump out at you for must-view TV?
As a Sydney NPL enjoyer, I do love Spirit. They play some exciting stuff at sometimes, and Richie Darko's capable of anything on his day. So no, I'm definitely excited to see that one. But some good fixtures there to take a lot of information away, I think.
Who do you think is the most likely A-League team to slip up, Christian?
to slip up in this round.
Yeah.
Jacob's not here. You can say it.
If Jacob was here, I would have said Adelaide anyway. I wouldn't have cared if he was in or not in. Probably the Wanderers. I don't know why. I can see an upset happening there just because they're the sort of side at the moment who I can see slipping up, in one of these games against state level sides. I haven't seen too much of Queensland Lions, but I wouldn't be shocked there. Or probably Adelaide United. They're probably the two clubs, A-League clubs, where I could see an upset. But other than that, I don't see victory. Dropping a loss, or Perth Glory not getting through against Moreton City. So I'd probably stick my neck out and say Wanderers or Adelaide.
All right, there you go. 3 games Tuesday, 3 games Wednesday. A good weekend of cup football coming up. Let's go to some transfer news because former Socceroos captain Trent Sainsbury is heading back to where it all began on the Central Coast as Will Booth gives a wry smile and the nod of the head. The 32-year-old returns to the treble winners on a 3-year deal, a decade on from his sale to the Eredivisie. The Australian also reporting that he was being pursued by Sydney FC, but the Mariners is where he ends up. We potentially thought that Adelaide United may have been a good fit for him. They're obviously on the lookout for some defenders as well. But he's going back to the Central Coast where he made his professional debut in a big year for the Mariners as well, of course, with Champions League elite competition coming up soon.
Fantastic signing for them. And I think, Sydney FC rumoured there and Adelaide we thought was a good fit. But I think the narrative of the return is doing a lot of heavy lifting for the Mariners and definitely got that deal over the line, it seems. And I think that's, addressing an obvious problem that they've had with the exit of Vukovic and, such a leadership void gone with him and having really choices of only young keepers as well, where you want that leadership at the back, you want the calm heads and keep the chat positive all through the game. I think that's an excellent signing there, and maybe a little bit of a spotty career in parts. I think he's been always part of the national team, at least when he was playing at his peak, and still looks to have it. 3 years is maybe. We'll have to see how he ends up at the end of the 3 years. So that's a good sign that they've got him that long. But we'll have to see how he's tested. But it does seem like he will slot straight into that back line and become definitely an important part of it in the Champions League as well.
Especially when you go through such a period of success, Christian, like the Mariners have. You managed to keep Brian Kaltak, which is massive, but you're going to lose Dan Hall. But getting such an experienced player like Trent Sainsbury in, obviously, he played in the Champions League for PSV once, which is maybe a little bit of a stretch. But like Sydney FC, that they're all Serie A players. Trent Sainsbury is a Champions League player. He's been around the world. He's played in Asia. He's played in the Champions League of Asia as well. So a very experienced player. He's coming back home. It seems like a pretty good fit.
No, it does. And I think you've touched on it, Lockie, in previous podcasts where you've admitted that you're going to be a bit worried about the Mariners heading into the ACL Elite because of, the players that they've, seen gone out the door. Perhaps they won't have the depth as they did from previous seasons to keep it up, in such a major competition like the ACL Elite. But to have someone of Sainsbury's caliber with that European experience, albeit, he hasn't started in too many games, but nonetheless, to have that experience, been there, done that, and then to take that back to still a young side, what the Mariners are, that's surely, valuable for the club. And I think it was definitely a no-brainer for them to take him back. And, like Will said, he'll slot straight back into, that back four in that central position. I don't think it will be enough for him to earn another call-up to the Socceroos, albeit we see a couple of injuries here and there. I still think perhaps it can be a good squad role player for him, for Graham Arnold, potentially if, he's short on players. But I think the ship sailed, unfortunately. Who knows? Maybe pulls out the rabbit in the hat and has a tremendous season. Graham Arnold has second thoughts. But, besides that, he just hasn't been playing regular football as of late to warrant a call-up, I reckon.
Don't forget, Graham Arnold is Trent Sainsbury's father-in-law as well. So I'm sure there's a very close relationship there. I do agree with you, Will. I think the leadership shout is a good one. With the absence of Danny Vukovic at the back now, getting him into the heart of defence and being that voice as well, I think that'll be key. So, I think that's bang on. I'm going to do my best Paletti impression now and rack off some signing news. The Wellington Phoenix are going to, or are set to sign Hideki Ashige. This is according to Yahoo News Japan. He's a 29-year-old Japanese midfielder, currently plays for Gamba Osaka in J1. The Phoenix are also rumoured to be the New Zealand club that will sign Kazuki Nagasawa, 32-year-old midfielder, J2. They look to be growing a Japanese contingent over in New Zealand at the moment. We heard news that Gio Colley has rejected a contract offer from Perth Glory and he will depart the club. Robbie Stanton says that the Jets are in advanced talks for a foreign striker and could have an answer within a matter of days. That will obviously be a very pertinent story for Lockie Rose, who, Will, I agree with you, has made a good start to life at the Jets in the Cup. He pressed well for that second goal. We talked about Josh Nisbet to Ross County. That move is now confirmed. Plenty of transfer news coming out of the Wanderers as well. The latest is that Marcus Eunice is being chased by a number of European clubs. And here we get into a fun one now because Melbourne Victory, in the commencement of their dub week, have announced a 15-player list of returning players for their dub side. Quite the long list of players to work through. The highlights that Lydia Williams will play on. Alex Chidiak is, of course, still contracted. Rachel Lowe, Alana Murphy, Emily Gielnick, and Betty Goad all feature. As part of that, there were some confirmed departures. Jess Nash, Korea Aquino, Tori Hansen, Jamila Rankin, and Marina Templeman will all depart the club. But it seemed to be this vibe of a week of transfer news and announcements, so stay tuned on that, Victory fans. And then the final one, which is the big one, I think, coming out of the dub, Christian, is that Serena Bolden has departed the Newcastle Jets for an unnamed Italian club. We're not going through the whole rigmarole of last season where no one seemed to want to pick her up for the A-League. They're not getting a chance because she's going overseas.
Yeah, well, when she's in demand, now the dub clubs don't have a chance now to pick her up. Isn't that funny? Last season she was there for the taking and no one wanted her. The Jets took her on mid-season. It was the best decision they made because she made such an impact to that side, with her goals, her contribution. It was just, unreal. And she absolutely deserves this move abroad. It'll be interesting to see which club it is in Italy, but nonetheless, I'll be able to pronounce it for you properly, Lockie. So when we get that news, I'll let you know, notify you so you can have a few practice runs over. But no, hopefully she does well over there because like I say, she deserves it.
I know I've already used this joke on you guys, but I did say in the group chat after we got that press release in that I wonder if the Jets weren't allowed to name the club from Italy, or they were just worried that Christian would have a go at them for pronouncing it incorrectly.
I think the latter.
Yeah, I think the latter. Okay, well, good luck to Serena Bolden. She had a very good season last year, and she deserves the move. But let's head to the national team because Graham Arnold will soon announce his Socceroos squad to take on Bahrain and Indonesia in the September international window. Now, this is always a tricky one because the A-League players are out of season, only really starting to get into their pre-season competitions. So Graham Arnold has persistently talked about this issue of the A-League starting late and not in line with the international calendar. So he will very rarely pick A-League players. But for my burning question is who's going to be at left back for the Socceroos? Now, we've seen this kind of rotation of players, Geordie Boss, and who I tipped a couple of weeks ago to potentially be his replacement, Jacob Farrell, are actually both potentially injured. So it looks like Farrell will have to wait a little longer for that first Socceroos call-up. Aziz Bage is, of course, a stalwart of the team, but is playing for Melbourne City and is out of season in the A-League. I think he will still get selected, Bage, just because he's such a core element of that team. But apart from that, you really have to go a little way down the list in terms of who you're picking up next. Perhaps Callum Elder, which is a name many probably haven't heard of. He's starting left back for Derby in the Championship at the moment, but definitely running short of options in that left back position.
Short of options when Boss and Farrell are injured. I think between those two, that's the future. It's easy to say we're short of options when you take out our probably two best current players there. But yeah, as long as he stops playing Boss at left wing, I'll be happy. But I think Farrell is unlucky with timing with his injury because that could have been his chance for sure. So remains to be seen. Maybe he does still get picked because I think that's a perfect opportunity, as you said, outside of the A-League window it is hard to see who else he goes to. So yeah, definitely an interesting choice there. But yeah, I wouldn't be, his excuse for picking Behic there if he does this time.
Yeah. The interesting thing for Boss as well is that because Craig Goodwin has recovered from that rib injury, he started very well in the Saudi Pro League the other day. You'd imagine Goodwin would go straight back into that left wing spot, which would at least force the hand to either Behic or Boss or, of course, Farrell in that left back spot. So we could have even got to see Boss at left back, which we've all wanted to see a fair bit. But Will, what's your burning question?
Burning question is the goalkeeper position. I think it's, we're looking at it. I think we've spoke about it on the previous pod, but or on a couple of episodes ago, that if you're looking at players that are playing, both Matt Ryan and Joe Gauci are in the same position, right, where they're second pick on the bench. Hopefully, we haven't seen yet, but maybe getting a chance in cup games. So I think this is your chance to kind of try and start to bet in Gauci a bit, and I think there's definitely a decision to be made about the future. That number one spot, obviously Ryan is still probably the best performer right now. He still seems to be in his prime for sure, and goalkeepers do have a long prime. But I think the future needs to start taken into consideration. So I would like to see maybe some experimentation there kind of happen.
Just quickly, I would agree, because the problem with Ryan is that the cup games in Italy don't start in, I think, January, because it's not like England where you've got two cup competitions. You've got EFL Cup, FA Cup, and they start a bit earlier. FA Cup, they start the top teams in, like, I think the second or third round. In Italy, they go straight from the round of 16. The top clubs go straight in there, and then it's a bit of a Mickey.
16?
Yeah, it's a bit of a Mickey Mouse competition. They don't start from round of 32, round of 64. It's pretty weird how they do it over there. So that won't be until...
Hold on, I have to clarify this. How do you fit so many teams into the round of 16?
It's the top club. So it's like, the obvious Milan, Juve, Inter, Roma, they get seeded into the round of 16, and then they've got the playoffs for, like, round of 64, which have already happened. They're continuing. So,
you've got the lower Serie A teams go in earlier. But
and obviously Serie C, Serie B, and that's how it goes. So for Ryan, if you want to, make the argument of, cup competition, he's going to have to wait until January, and the Socceroo is going to be, halfway through the qualifying campaign. So you're probably right, Will, in that, maybe try and give Gauci an opportunity or two, see what he's capable of, or if not, throw Ryan back into the mix because he's got that experience.
All right. Fascinating. Yeah. Interesting point. And of course, when you get to the round of 16, you're almost so deep into a cup competition where you're trying to play your best players to win the cup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Very interesting situation. All right, Christian, what's your burning question?
Burning question for me will have to be up front, because Yusini Yengi is carrying a bit of a groin injury the past few weeks. So he hadn't played the first few games for Portsmouth in the championship, and he's just recently come back, made his first minutes on the weekend, which is great to see. But surely that's going to open the door for an opportunity for someone else. I guess it depends on the formation change. We saw, I think, last game or the game before for the Socceroos, where Arnold went with a front two. So it depends. Does he go with wingers? Does he go with that front two where it could be Adam Taggart partnering someone? Or, he might go for Goodwin on the left wing, like you mentioned, Lockie, or Iran Kunda even for a game like Bahrain. So, yeah, a few questions there as to who will start there. It's pretty open, though.
All right, second question for you. Who's earned it? So someone who's, potentially in the squad deserves a starting position, or someone who's been on the fringes that their club form has allowed them an opening of the door, so to speak. I'll kick us off. I'm going to go for Alessandro Ceccati, and I'm going to say he has earned the starting centre-back position. He played 90 minutes in Parma's 2-1 win over AC Milan, which I would like to emphasise in front of Christian. But look, I think we're at the point now where I think we can all admit that Ceccati is the future of the centre-back position for Australia. Obviously, we've had Suter, which we highly rate, and he's getting regular minutes now, so I think it's those two that start together. We know Burgess has been struggling with injury. He has been sitting on the bench for Ipswich, but hasn't played minutes, I don't believe. So those two look the locks for me. You've also got Kai Rouse, who has been a regular in that lineup as well. So for me, Will, it's Ceccati and Suter, unless anyone can really knock the house down.
Yeah, no, I like that. I agree with that. So, yeah, Burgess hasn't got the minutes yet in the Prem, but Chakati and Suta, yeah, they're both playing. They're both playing at a good level for their team. So, no, excited to see that partnership kind of get some minutes under their belt. For me, it would be the balance in midfield. I think needs to be looked at and sorted out a little. I think Robertson has maybe proven himself. He's got minutes in the AFL Cup for Cardiff, so he's earned his move to the Championship permanently, and is with Cardiff and played their most recent game, which was a draw. So he seems to be getting minutes after his return from injury, and I think we'll see him more as well, because he probably didn't get the preseason coming back from injury that he would have ideally. So that's why we didn't see him in the first couple of fixtures, but he seems to be back on track now to be getting minutes. And I think he adds so much to that Socceroos midfield. I think he does a bit of everything well enough to kind of be a dynamic option there, compared to options that we had where it was maybe looking a bit stale, where we had too many recyclers and ball winners and didn't have that progressive passer, which I think Robertson really excels at. So he's an exciting one. I think he's done enough to try and solidify a spot, and was unlucky with timing with his injury. So as it related to the Socceroos call up. So very excited to kind of see how he progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. And he performed so well for Portsmouth last season before he went out with that injury, was beloved by fans. And you're right, he's obviously had an interrupted pre-season as well, still coming back from that. So that maybe works against him. But you got to remember as well, Ajan Hrustic, his situation is still unknown at Hellas Verona. He's definitely not playing. Riley McGree is still injured as well. So that creative kind of role at the front of the midfield for the Socceroos, there is a gap. And I'm with you. I think Alex Robertson could definitely help fill that void. Christian, finally for you, who's earned it?
A name that's popped up the last couple of weeks is Max Ballard, NSC Breda in the Eredivisie, Dutch Eredivisie. He started all 3 games so far this season in the Netherlands. Famously got that win, I think it was last week, 2-1 win against Ajax. Ajax aren't the same team, as of previous years. We know last season they struggled a lot. I think they were like battling relegation, in the first half of the season until they turned it around. But nonetheless, I think Ballard's one of those, defensive line midfielders who definitely does have a shout to get a starting berth, especially with these upcoming first 2 games against Bahrain and Indonesia. If you're ever going to experiment in that position, then I think now's the time to do it. At the same time, if Arnold wants stability, it's very hard to see that that midfield of Kenu Bacchus, Jackson Irvine, those types of players missing. You just don't really see that happening unless Arnold decides to make 1 or 2 changes. But in terms of earning his spot, I think Ballard is definitely in the discussion for that to get a start or at least come off the bench. I think he definitely deserves some minutes for his first few performances so far this season.
Yeah. For me, he's one of those players who in the A-League, you just might not notice him as much. He kind of will perform the same role in kind of, any team he's in there. But as soon as he got that move and he has the eyeballs on him now, you kind of see him in a different light. So he's somebody who's, I think, benefited from a move abroad for sure, because we saw him come through and I think was always just such an underrated player that not everyone appreciated fully, unless you were a Mariners fan and watching him properly week in, week out. So no, it really benefited from his move and excited to see if that does happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to look back on it because his deal originally to Portimonense in Portugal, where of the strong belief that fell down because of the team's relegation to the second tier of Portuguese football. You could probably argue that this is a better move for him as well to the Eredivisie. Maybe slightly a high profile. It's tough for me to speak to it directly, but he certainly seems like he's gone down the blocks quick and doing well with Breda over there. Finally, guys, expectations for the team throughout this window, games against Bahrain, Indonesia. Of course, on the surface, you'd say should be winning. We get to go to the Gold Coast for the first time for a men's nationals team game, which is exciting. Christian, trip to the Goldie. I think Paletti's on their way up, so they're going to cover that game for us. A nice little holiday for them. A working holiday, we'll call it.
For tax purposes.
Tax purposes, yeah. No, that'll be definitely a good trip. I mean, Gold Coast been waiting ages for, a game there to see the Socceroos play. Like we've touched on previously, against Bahrain, that's the sort of team where you want to see, those types of games being played. You want the big games over in Sydney and Melbourne, get that atmosphere, but yeah, it's good to see it getting shared around a bit. Obviously, Adelaide as well, getting their fair share as well. So yeah, it's great to see that diversity in that sense. But yeah, like you said, you'd expect 6 points out of 6, but can't underestimate these teams at the same time. From recent memory, over the past decade or so, Bahrain have posed as a bit of a challenge, especially away from home. I know this game's going to be at home to start, but even Indonesia, they're on the rise. So it just shows that Asian football, these nations coming through, it's getting harder and harder just to stay afloat. Obviously Australia still has a quality and they're expected to win, but the game's played on the pitch. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, of course, will Bahrain a win over Jordan at the Asian Cup at the start of the year. That's not an easy result to pull off.
Yeah, these games are all about getting the balance between don't upset us all if we don't perform, but also do something exciting and give something new for us to look at. So yeah, it's always tough. I mean, it's a lose-lose these type of games. So hopefully, just good football, I think, is what I want to see. I think we've got to look past a bit of the discourse about it.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, it's going to be an interesting window for the Socceroos, but that will do for this episode of the Round Ball Australia podcast. Thanks again to Deploy Football for supporting our show and our coverage of the beautiful game. Christian Montegan, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Will, and congratulations on the trophy on the weekend.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back on Friday. Thank you all very much for listening. Goodbye.